Your problem starts in your mind because it has accepted loss as the final truth. If you change how you think, you change what you experience. This manuscript was almost lost forever. It disappeared for days without any explanation, but we managed to find it again. Save it, share it, because we don't know how long it will be around. Back in 1908, a group known only as the Three Initiates gave the world a book that changed how people understood the universal laws, the Kybalion. But what most people didn't know is that book was just a reflection of something much deeper. For decades, archaeologists and scholars interested in hidden knowledge searched tirelessly for the original texts that inspired it, the writings of Hermes Trismegistus himself. Hermes was a legendary Egyptian wise man, called the messenger of the gods by the Greeks, and the father of hidden wisdom by alchemists. Until now, those original writings were lost, deep in a forgotten library in Alexandria, buried beneath layers of sand and time. Sealed parchments were found with black wax, parchments bearing Hermes's personal seal, the caduceus wrapped with the infinity symbol, the mark he used only for his most private and powerful writings. These manuscripts aren't just philosophical ideas or teachings for everyone. They are personal confessions from a man who lived among gods and humans. They are the intimate memories of someone who uncovered the secrets behind all reality and the cost of knowing them. For the first time in over 3,000 years, Hermes Trismegistus's voice is heard again. Not as a distant ancient master, but as a man who woke up one morning and understood that the entire universe lived inside his mind. As a seeker who cried when he realized everything he thought was real was actually just vibration. As someone who trembled knowing that every thought, every feeling, every breath was shaping reality itself. These are his words, his secrets, his deepest truths. What you're about to hear isn't just knowledge. It's the transformation that happens when the human soul connects with the eternal laws of the cosmos. It's the story of a man who became a legend, not because of what he taught, but because of what he lived. Now, after thousands of years of silence, he will tell you how it all happened. Take a deep breath, open your heart, and get ready to hear the voice of the man who cracked the mysteries of the universe from the depths of his own soul. The desert wind seems to whisper his name, Hermes, Hermes, Hermes. And in that whisper, his voice rises from the past to share what he never revealed before. This is the lost manuscript of Hermes Trismegistus, Chapter 1. The day I realized everything is mind. The day I knew I wasn't just human was the day my mind connected with the mind of the universe. I had spent years searching for answers in Egypt's temples, asking the wisest priests, studying every sacred symbol I could find. I thought the truth was hidden in some lost papyrus, carved on ancient stone, or whispered in secret rituals, but I was wrong. The truth was waiting for me in the simplest and scariest place. It happened one dawn in Memphis. I'd stayed awake again, haunted by the same questions every night. What is real? What's an illusion? Why is there something instead of nothing? The stars shone coldly, as if they were guarding secrets they wouldn't share. I sat by the Nile, exhausted from searching, when something happened that changed everything. It wasn't a flash of divine light or a mystical vision. It was simpler and deeper. I closed my eyes, and in that complete silence, when my mind stopped looking outside for answers, something amazing happened. I realized everything I'd ever experienced. Every temple, every word, every feeling, every star had existed only in my mind, not as memories or thoughts about reality, but as reality itself. The Nile flowing before me was in my mind. The cold stones I sat on were in my mind. The air I breathed was in my mind. My own body was in my mind. But this wasn't just imagination, as some might think. It was something much bigger and more real. My individual mind had touched something greater, the universal mind, the all, the spirit that fills everything, the infinite living mind that holds the entire universe as one vast thought. In that moment, I understood the most important law of all. Everything is mind, not just that everything is in the mind like a comforting idea, or that the mind is powerful like some shallow teachers say, but that everything from the tiniest grain of sand to the farthest galaxy is a thought, an idea in the infinite mind of the all. I trembled, not from cold, but from sacred awe and fear. If everything is mind, then I wasn't just the small Egyptian man I thought I was. I was a conscious thought inside a limitless mind. I was an idea that had awakened and recognized itself as part of the infinite thinker. But the biggest impact wasn't understanding this with my head, it was feeling it. At the exact moment I accepted this truth, reality around me started to respond differently. I thought of light, and dawn began to break on the horizon, even though sunrise was still hours away. I thought of warmth, and a gentle breeze touched my face in the cold desert night. I thought of peace, and the constant noise of my thoughts fell silent like never before. It wasn't magic. It was something much more natural and powerful. My individual mind reconnecting with the universal mind it had never really been separate from. For days, I couldn't talk to anyone. How could I explain that I had discovered that everything we call the physical world is really just a hugely complex thought inside the mind of a being beyond any name or form, yet at the same time, it is every name and every form? Then life put me to the test just 3 days later. A desperate merchant showed up at my door. His caravan had been robbed in the desert. His family had no food, and moneylenders were threatening to enslave his children if he didn't pay his debts before sunset. "Master Hermes," he begged, "I've heard you know the secrets of the gods. Please help me or my family will die." At that moment, what I had learned by the Nile became more than just knowledge. It became a living power. I looked at the man broken by despair, and suddenly I realized something that shook me. His problem existed only in his mind. His ruin, his fear, his hopelessness. They were real to him because his mind had accepted them as real. But if everything is mind, then his situation could also be changed by changing his mind. "Sit down," I said, "and listen carefully." I explained what I had just discovered, but in a way he could understand. Your problem isn't really in the desert where you lost your caravan. Your problem is in your mind, which has accepted the loss as final. If you change your mind, you change your reality. He looked at me like I was crazy. "How can my mind change the fact that thieves took my gold?" he asked. I felt the weight of this wisdom for the first time and answered, "What you call facts are just thoughts fixed in the universal mind. Any individual mind that consciously connects with that universal mind can help reshape those thoughts." Then I taught him the first technique I had discovered: mental transmutation. Close your eyes. Stop focusing on your loss. Instead, picture with all your energy a situation where your problem is already solved, not as a wish for the future, but as a present reality that already exists in the mind of the all and just needs to show up in the physical world. For an hour, I guided him to lift his mind from despair to calm certainty, while he practiced holding the image of his family safe and thriving, no matter what the facts seemed to say. When he opened his eyes, his face had changed. The hopelessness was gone, replaced by a strange calm. "I don't know why," he said, "but now I feel everything will be okay, as if it already has happened." That afternoon, before sunset, a messenger arrived. The thieves had been caught by the pharaoh's soldiers. All the stolen goods were recovered, and the merchant was rewarded with double what he lost. That night, alone in my study, this deep understanding changed me forever. It wasn't luck or coincidence. It was the natural working of the most basic law of the universe. Everything is mind. When the merchant shifted from despair to calm certainty, he performed what the ancient masters called mental transmutation, raising his mental vibration from low to high. Since everything in the universe is mental, this shift automatically rearranged his outer circumstances to match his new inner state. Here's the part most people don't get, and it took me years to fully understand. The physical world we see is like a giant mirror, reflecting the combined state of all minds involved. When one person raises their mind consciously and connects with the universal mind, they send out waves that rearrange the whole network of thoughts. This is why one awakened person can change the destiny of thousands. This is why a thought held strong and clear will always show up in reality. This is why ancient masters guarded this knowledge closely, because a mind that truly understands that everything is mind has the power to reshape reality itself. With this power comes danger and responsibility. Once you know your mind is constantly creating your reality, every thought becomes a seed that will grow. Every feeling acts like a magnet, attracting matching experiences. Every belief turns into a rule that shapes your personal world. You can't blame your situation on chance anymore. You can't see yourself as a victim of fate. You can't live unaware of what you're thinking and feeling because you now know you're actively creating your experience all the time. I remember the sleepless nights after my awakening, the terror of realizing every fear I'd held, every grudge I'd kept, every limit I'd accepted had been shaping my reality for years without me knowing it. But I also remember the overwhelming joy of knowing that if I had been creating a limited reality without realizing it, now I could create an unlimited one, consciously. Here's the secret technique. Before you learn the other laws, you have to master this first one. Everything else depends on it. Every morning before the sun rises, sit quietly and remind yourself, everything is mind, not just as a phrase, but as a living truth. Feel your individual mind as a conscious drop in the endless ocean of the universal mind. Feel how every thought you think sends waves through that ocean. Feel how you can choose what waves you create. Then, with the same confidence you know the sun will rise, hold the clearest, most detailed picture of the reality you want. Not as something you hope for, but as something already real in the mind of the all, just waiting to show up in your life. Do this every day for 40 days, and you'll see your reality start to change to match your new understanding. But remember, this isn't a game or a casual experiment. It's the most real power in the universe. Use it wisely, because what you create with your mind, you will live through in life. My awakening continues. Now I understand why the ancient masters kept this knowledge secret, not because it was dangerous for the world, but because the world wasn't ready for such a radical change. Because once you really know, not just believe, that everything is mind, you can't live the same way anymore. Every thought becomes a cosmic responsibility. Every feeling becomes a creative force. Every moment of attention becomes an act of conscious participation in creating reality. And that responsibility, that freedom, that power can be more than a soul is ready to handle. But if you're hearing these words now, if something inside you resonates with this truth, maybe it's time for you to wake up too, from the illusion of separation, and remember who you really are. You're not a body that happens to have a mind. You're a mind experiencing the illusion of having a body. You're not a small consciousness lost in a huge, uncaring universe. You're infinite consciousness playing at forgetting itself so it can remember itself again. You're not a human having a spiritual experience. Your spirit, pure and universal, having a human experience. And when you understand this, not just with your head, but with your whole being, feeling it in every cell, every heartbeat, every breath, every moment, you will have touched the first key that opens every door of mystery, the first and final key. Everything is mind. Chapter 2. The Night I Saw the Eternal Dance of Opposites. One quiet night in Egypt, under a sky full of stars that seemed to whisper ancient secrets, I finally understood something important. Every tear that fell from my eye was just like the morning dew on the petals of a sacred lotus. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a connection. I had spent months struggling with a new idea about how the universe works, that it's shaped by the mind. My mind, now aware of its power to create, was caught between awe and fear. How could one person be responsible for so much? How could I carry the weight of knowing my thoughts shaped reality? That night, I walked to my favorite spot by the Nile River. The water was like a huge, perfect mirror reflecting the vast sky. I sat on a warm stone and looked up at the stars. The constellations danced in familiar patterns I'd known since I was a kid, but something felt different. I saw them in a new way. I realized this: what shined in the sky was reflected exactly in the river below. Every star had a twin in the water. Every constellation was doubled in the river's surface. It wasn't just a trick of the eye, it was something deeper and sacred. My heart raced, tears came without warning, because I suddenly knew what I was seeing wasn't just a reflection. It was proof of a universal truth, connecting all parts of existence, as above, so below. I closed my eyes and let this understanding flow through me like the river's current. I saw how my feelings inside matched perfectly with what happened in my life outside. The patterns in my thoughts were the same as those guiding the planets. The shape of my soul mirrored the shape of the universe. This wasn't a metaphor, it was real. Then I thought of Amenhotep, a spice trader I'd met a few weeks earlier at the market. He came to me broken, his eyes swollen from crying. His caravans had been attacked 3 times. His family doubted him and his business partners left one by one. "Why is misfortune chasing me?" he asked. Back then, before that night, I didn't have an answer. But now, under the stars, I understood perfectly. Amenhotep's inner world was full of chaos. He didn't trust himself. He was angry at his late father, and he was terrified of failing. His mind was a battlefield where huge ambition and crippling guilt fought non-stop. What I saw in his life wasn't bad luck. It was perfect correspondence. His inner distrust showed in his family's doubt. His anger attracted anger. His fear made failure more likely. As above, so below. What was in his mind was what showed up in his world. That night by the river, I had a vision I'll never forget. I saw all parts of existence like endless mirrors reflecting each other. The physical world mirrored emotions. Emotions mirrored thoughts. Thoughts mirrored spirit, and together they reflected the nature of everything. I realized there's no real separation between levels of reality, just different forms of the same universal substance, all following the same patterns. An atom worked like a solar system. A cell arranged itself like a galaxy. Feelings followed the same laws as crowds of people. Correspondence wasn't just a nice idea. It was the most powerful tool I'd ever known. I stood up and walked to the water's edge, dipping my hands into the cool current. Every drop slipping through my fingers held the same life force running through my veins. The river and my blood obeyed the same laws. My breath matched the tides, my heart beat with the planet's cycles. In that moment, I knew exactly how to help Amenhotep. The next day, I found him in the market, sitting quietly with shaking hands and a lost look. I sat beside him without saying anything. Finally, I spoke. Amenhotep, have you ever noticed how your camel reflects how you feel inside? He looked confused. What do you mean, master? When you're afraid, it gets nervous. When you're anxious, it can't settle. When you don't trust the path, it stumbles more. Haven't you noticed? Slowly, his eyes opened wider. Understanding dawned. Your camel is your mirror, Amenhotep. Your attacked caravans, your doubtful family, your leaving partners, all reflect your inner state. It's not bad luck. It's perfect correspondence between your heart and your life. Then I taught him a practice I'd discovered that night. The contemplation of the sacred mirror. Every morning for 40 days he sat before a bowl of fresh water. First, he looked at his reflection and asked, "What do I see in my face that shows up in my life?" If he saw tiredness, he looked for tiredness in his relationships. If he saw tension, he traced it to his business. Then he closed his eyes to observe his feelings inside. Every feeling was a seed that would grow in his life outside. If he felt anger, he knew he'd see anger in others. If he felt love, love would appear. Finally, he chose what to plant in his inner world, knowing the outer world would reflect that choice. Amenhotep followed this practice faithfully. Within 2 weeks, he changed not just how he felt, but everything around him. His camels became calm, partners returned with new offers, his family trusted him again, and his caravans traveled safely. No magic, just correspondence. What had changed was his inner world, and by universal law, his outer world had to follow. But I have to warn you about something important I learned that night by the Nile. The law of correspondence doesn't separate what you want from what you hide inside. Thinking positive on the surface isn't enough if deep down you carry fear, anger, or guilt. Correspondence shows all of you, not just the part you want to show. That's why this knowledge can be dangerous without the right preparation, because once you know everything outside matches something inside, you can't blame luck, circumstances, or others for what happens. The responsibility is total. I remember one night a young priest came to confront me. He'd heard rumors about my teachings and was furious. "You're saying that if someone is attacked by bandits, it's because they attracted it with their mind. You're blaming the victims," he shouted. I could understand why he was upset, but he didn't have the full picture. I calmly explained that the law of correspondence doesn't mean we consciously invite every bad thing that happens. It means the overall pattern of our experiences matches the overall pattern of what's going on inside our minds. A man might not purposely bring on an attack, but if he lives in constant fear, thinks like a victim, or carries guilt that demands punishment, he's creating the inner conditions that line up with feeling vulnerable and being attacked. The law doesn't punish or reward, it just reflects. It's like a river that mirrors both the beauty of a flower and the ugliness of a dead rat. The water doesn't judge what it shows, it just reflects what's there. This idea changed me forever. I stopped seeing life as random events and started seeing it as a mirror of my own inner growth. Every person who came into my life showed me something about myself. Every situation was a chance to see what was really going on deep inside me. When someone lied to me, I asked, where am I lying to myself? When someone betrayed me, I wondered, where am I betraying myself? When someone showed me love without conditions, I celebrated, I must have grown that kind of love inside myself. But there's more to correspondence, something I learned years later that changed how I practice it. It works both ways. Not only does your inner world shape your outer world, but changing your outer world can also change your inner state. If you want more order in your mind, start by organizing your physical space. If you want more beauty in your heart, surround yourself with beautiful things. If you want more abundance in your soul, act like an abundant person on the outside. The mirror reflects both ways. I learned this working with a woman named Nefertari, who came to me feeling deeply sad for no clear reason. Her life was good, comfortable home, loving family, good health. But inside she felt empty and gray. Instead of telling her to change her thoughts or feelings directly, I asked her to change her physical environment. I told her to fill her house with fresh flowers every day, wear bright colors, walk only in beautiful places, and eat foods that looked appealing. "But Master," she said, "I feel like I'm faking it. It doesn't match how I feel inside." I said, "Exactly. That's why it will work. You're using the law of correspondence backwards. You change your outer world to change your inner world." In 3 weeks, Nefertari was a different person. The beauty around her awakened the beauty inside. The bright colors reawakened the colors in her spirit. The fresh flowers brought freshness back to her heart. Correspondence worked in reverse, from outside in. That night by the river, watching the stars reflected in the water, I knew I had found one of the keys, not just to understand reality, but to change it consciously. I realized every level of reality holds the full picture of all the others. If you can read the language of correspondence, you can understand the whole universe by looking at a single drop of dew. You can see the future of a civilization by how one person treats an animal. You can tell the health of a soul by the health of its body. Everything is connected because everything corresponds. Before I left the riverbank that night, I made a promise to the stars and their reflection in the water. I would use this knowledge not to control reality for my own gain, but to teach others how to read the sacred language of correspondence. Because once you truly understand this law, you can't live in ignorance anymore. You can't blame others or bad luck for what happens. You stop feeling like a victim of random events. You become a conscious creator of your reality, knowing that every thought you hold, every feeling you nurture, and every intention you carry will show up in the endless mirror of existence. This responsibility is both a gift and a challenge. It's the difference between being a child who thinks life just happens to them and a grown spirit who knows life is their reflection. As I walked home that night, my heart full of understanding and eyes wet with gratitude, I knew I would never see the world the same way again. Every morning would be a chance to plant seeds inside, and every evening a moment to see what I had grown outside. The endless dance between above and below had begun for me. A dance that would lead me to even deeper truths about the forces moving atoms and stars alike. Chapter 3. The moment I felt the soul of the cosmos. Stubborn early morning, I woke up for no clear reason. It wasn't a sound or a light or even a dream. It was something deeper and more basic. It felt like every part of me started vibrating at a frequency I'd never felt before. I sat up in bed, my heart racing and my skin tingling with a feeling I couldn't explain. It was like being inside a giant guitar string the moment it's plucked. My whole body was like an instrument, vibrating with a hidden cosmic song. Without thinking, I got out of bed barefoot, pulled by a feeling deep inside me. The desert was calling, and I couldn't ignore it. I walked for hours under the stars until I reached a place I'd never seen. A rock formation shaped like a natural amphitheater, where the wind made sounds like ancient chants. I sat in the middle of the stones and closed my eyes. That's when it happened. For the first time, I truly felt the vibration of everything around me. It wasn't something I thought about. It was something I felt in every part of my body. I realized my body, which I thought was solid and still, was actually a whirlwind of tiny particles moving at incredible speeds. My thoughts felt like waves of energy crashing through my mind like ocean waves. My emotions were like different frequencies resonating in different parts of me. But the most amazing part wasn't feeling my own vibration. It was feeling how perfectly my vibration matched the vibration of everything else around me. The rocks weren't still. They vibrated so slowly they looked motionless, but I could feel their ancient dance. The sand beneath my feet wasn't just dirt. Every grain was a tiny universe of spinning particles moving in perfect patterns. The air I breathed wasn't empty. It was full of energy, so dense that every breath felt like drinking liquid light. In that moment, I understood one of the most groundbreaking truths I've ever known. Solid matter doesn't really exist. There's only energy vibrating at different speeds. Stone is energy vibrating slowly, water vibrates faster, air faster still, and thought moves at speeds we can't even imagine. But there was something else that left me shaking, with a mix of awe and fear. I realized I could change my own vibration on purpose. I was so focused on feeling the vibrations around me that, without realizing it, I started tuning my own frequency to match different elements. When I tuned into the rocks, my body felt heavy and steady. When I tuned into the wind, I felt light, like I could float. When I tuned into the stars, my awareness expanded to cosmic levels. It was both scary and amazing. I stayed in that stone circle until the sun began to rise. As the first light appeared, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just watching the cosmic vibrations anymore. I was part of the cosmic music. I went back to the city with a fire burning inside me. I knew I had just discovered the secret behind all miracles, all transformations, and the powers the ancient masters had shown for centuries. Vibration was the master key. For days, I couldn't tell anyone about this experience. How do you explain something that words can't capture? I needed a way to help others experience this truth for themselves. Then Katie, a young temple scribe, came to see me. He was deeply depressed. His eyes were dull, his shoulders slumped, his voice barely a whisper. He said for months it felt like a gray cloud was covering him. Nothing brought joy or hope. He felt like he was dying inside. As I listened, I could feel his vibration, heavy, slow, stuck, like being trapped in a swamp of sadness and hopelessness. His energy was so low it pulled in more negative thoughts, bad situations, and toxic people. I asked him, "Katie, are you willing to try something that might feel strange but could change how you feel?" He nodded weakly. He was desperate enough to try anything. I told him to sit facing me and put his hands on his chest. "I want you to feel your heartbeat," I said. "Not just hear it, but feel it as a vibration inside your body." At first, he struggled. His mind was scattered and his energy was so low he could barely focus. But slowly he started to feel the rhythm of his heart as a real vibration. "Now," I said, "try to make your heartbeat a little faster, not by moving or forcing it, but by pure intention. Imagine you're tuning your heart like a musical instrument." Katie looked confused, but did what I said. After a few minutes of focus, he surprised both of us. He was able to speed up his heart rate just by willing it. His eyes opened wide in shock. "How is this even possible?" he asked. "Your heart isn't just a muscle," I told him. "It's a center of vibration that responds to your conscious intention. If you can change your heart's vibration, you can change the vibration of your whole being." Then I taught him a practice I created after my experience in the desert. I called it the vibrational ladder. First step, feel your current vibration. Every morning, Katie had to spend 5 minutes simply noticing how his body, emotions, and thoughts were vibrating. No judging, no trying to change, just feeling where he was at in that moment. Second step, identify the vibration you want. He had to remember a time when he felt truly alive and joyful, and bring that feeling back until he could physically sense how his body felt then. Third step, close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Slowly, breath by breath. Like tuning a string instrument, he had to adjust his current vibration bit by bit until it matched the desired one. Fourth step, hold the new vibration. Once he reached the desired vibration, he had to keep it for at least 10 deep breaths, making it stick in his body's memory. Fifth step, spread the new vibration out into the world. He imagined his new vibration expanding from his heart, attracting people, opportunities, and situations that matched his higher frequency. Katie practiced this every day for 30 days. The changes were amazing, not just for him, but for everyone around him. In the first week, his posture improved. His shoulders straightened, his eyes brightened, his voice got stronger. In the second week, people started treating him differently. Those who had ignored him now wanted to be around him. In the third week, new opportunities showed up at work. By the fourth week, he was a completely different person. "Master," he told me, "it's like I changed the channel on my whole life. The same people, the same places, the same situations, but everything feels totally different because I'm vibrating differently." He really understood the heart of the law, but I have to warn you about something important I learned the hard way. You can't fake your vibration. There was a time when I thought I could just pretend to vibrate at higher frequencies without doing the inner work. I smiled when I felt sad, acted excited when I felt empty, and acted confident when I was insecure. It was a disaster. People could sense the fakeness. Animals stayed away. Even the plants in my garden started to wither. My fake vibration created a kind of disharmony that hurt everything around me. I realized that true vibration has to come from a real place inside. You can't vibrate love if your heart is full of anger. You can't vibrate abundance if your mind is stuck on scarcity. You can't vibrate peace if your soul is fighting itself. Being honest with yourself is the key. I learned this working with Berenice, a merchant who heard about Katie's progress and wanted to use the technique to bring more customers to her business. But when she tried, she couldn't hold the higher vibrations for more than a few seconds. "Master," she told me, frustrated, "I can feel abundance for a moment, but it slips away. It's like something inside me rejects it." I asked her to be completely honest about her true feelings toward money and success. After a lot of resistance, she admitted that deep down she thought she didn't deserve success, that money was dirty, and that wealthy people were somehow bad. How could she vibrate abundance when her deepest beliefs pushed it away? We worked for months, not just on the technique, but on changing the limiting beliefs that were blocking her. Only when she aligned her values with her desire for success could she hold the vibration of abundance. Then everything changed. Her business grew 10 times in 6 months. Over the years, I also discovered something else that changed how I see human experience. Different parts of us vibrate at different frequencies at the same time. Your body might vibrate health while your emotions vibrate sadness. Your mind might vibrate wisdom while your spirit vibrates confusion. This mismatch causes a lot of suffering. True mastery is about bringing all parts of yourself into harmony. I developed a practice I called the inner symphony, where you learn to feel the vibration of your body, emotions, mind, and spirit separately, then bring them all into sync. When everything inside you vibrates together, your power to create what you want grows exponentially. You stop fighting yourself, and all parts work together toward the same goal. But there's an even deeper secret about vibration that I learned later. One few people are ready for. Vibration doesn't just affect you personally, it changes everything around you. When you shift your core vibration, you literally change the energy field you live in. Possibilities rearrange around you. What once seemed impossible becomes likely. What was likely becomes certain. I've seen people change their family members' personalities just by holding steady vibrations of unconditional love. I've seen merchants transform entire cities' economies by raising their own vibrations of prosperity. I've seen healers cure diseases thought incurable by tuning into perfect health vibrations. This isn't magic, it's applied vibrational physics. But with this power comes a big responsibility. When you realize that your vibration directly affects the reality of others, you can't live unconsciously anymore. Every emotion you feel, every thought you hold, every intention you carry affects the well-being of everyone around you. You're not just responsible for your own growth, you're responsible for the growth of your whole environment. That responsibility can feel overwhelming. I remember nights without sleep, struggling with the weight of what I had discovered. Did I have the right to use this knowledge? Was I messing with other people's free will by changing the vibrations around them? The answer came with deeper understanding. The highest vibrations always free people. They never trap or control them. When you truly raise your vibration, you're not controlling others. You're simply offering them a chance to raise theirs too, like a torch lighting other torches without losing its own flame. That dawn in the stone amphitheater, when I first felt the soul of the cosmos vibrating, I didn't just discover a universal law, I found my purpose, to be a living tuning fork that helps others find their true frequency. Because when enough people learn to vibrate with love, wisdom, and compassion, the whole planet changes, not through wars or revolutions, but through a shift in vibration. The entire universe is waiting for humanity to play its part consciously in the great cosmic symphony. As I walked back from the desert that night, my soul still buzzing with new vibrations, I knew I had crossed a point of no return. I wasn't just watching life anymore. I had become a conscious co-creator of reality through the power of vibration. And I knew this knowledge would help me unlock even deeper secrets about the eternal dance of light and shadow that shapes everything. Chapter 4. When I discovered that the universe breathes with me. At my lowest point, when I thought I'd lost all connection to divine wisdom forever, I found the most freeing truth of my life. My greatest pain and my greatest gift were actually the same thing, just seen from opposite sides. I had spent months in what I can only call the dark night of the soul. After learning about vibration, I fell into the trap of thinking I could control everything just by adjusting my frequency. But life had other plans. One morning, I woke up and everything felt different. It was like someone switched off a light inside me. Colors looked dull, sounds were muffled, even the air felt heavy and thick. My vibrational practices stopped working. It felt like I'd lost the ability to reach higher frequencies completely. For weeks, I desperately tried to get back to how I was before. I worked on the vibrational ladder until I was exhausted, meditated for hours in the desert, looked for masters to help me. Nothing worked. If anything, my struggle made the darkness worse. I was so overwhelmed that I started doubting everything I'd learned. Had it all been just imagination or self-delusion? One day, a student who had come to me days earlier found me crying by the river, completely broken. "Master," he said gently, "what's going on?" "I'm master of nothing now," I said bitterly. "I've lost all my knowledge, my connection to the divine, my purpose. I'm just a man trapped in misery." He sat quietly for a long moment, then said, "Master, didn't you teach me that everything in the universe has an opposite, that light can't exist without darkness? If you're living your deepest darkness, doesn't that mean you also have an equally deep light?" His words hit me like a lightning bolt. At the very moment I felt farthest from spiritual truth, I suddenly understood the most powerful and paradoxical law of all. Everything is dual. Everything has two poles, and these opposites are really the same thing, just at different degrees. My darkness wasn't the opposite of my light. It was my light from the other side of the scale. My pain wasn't the enemy of my wisdom. It was my wisdom seen from the opposite angle. My despair wasn't a loss of divine connection. It was my divine connection showing itself through the experience of separation. For the first time in months, I smiled, not because I felt better, but because I finally understood that feeling bad and feeling good are the same energy, just experienced from opposite ends of the same scale. I got up from the river with a new feeling. I hadn't escaped the darkness. I had accepted that my darkness and my light were one. By fully embracing the negative, I automatically found the positive. That night, instead of fighting my sadness, I decided to explore it fully. I sat in meditation, and for the first time in months, instead of trying to change how I felt, I simply observed it with curiosity. What exactly was this sadness? Where did I feel it in my body? What was its texture, color, temperature? How did it vibrate, and where would it lead me if I followed it without fighting? To my surprise, when I stopped resisting and started exploring my sadness with the same curiosity I had brought to joy, something amazing happened. My sadness revealed secrets I'd never seen from happiness. It showed me deep compassion for others' pain. My despair gave me a humble honesty I'd lost in moments of spiritual joy. My feeling of separation taught me about how everything depends on everything else in ways my feeling of unity never had. These weren't different lessons. They were the same lessons seen from opposite sides. I realized I'd made the common mistake many spiritual seekers do, trying to live only on one side of experience. I chased light, joy, and connection, but by rejecting darkness, sadness, and separation, I cut myself off from half of what life offers. It's like trying to breathe by only inhaling and never exhaling. The universe breathes in and out, expands and contracts, shows itself, and pulls back. Being part of the universe means I have to breathe fully too, embracing both the in-breath of light and the out-breath of darkness. In the days after, I started developing what I later called polar breathing, a way to work with opposites instead of fighting them. When I felt sadness, instead of trying to get happy right away, I fully explored the sadness until I found the wisdom it could give me. Then, from that deep understanding, natural joy would come as the opposite pole. When I felt weak, I dived into the weakness until I learned the surrender only it could teach me. And from that true surrender, real strength came naturally. When I felt confused, instead of desperately chasing clarity, I embraced confusion until I found the humility only uncertainty can teach. And from that humility, clarity arrived as a gift, not something I forced. Your problem is your mind, which has accepted loss as final. Change your mind, and you change your reality. This practice completely changed how I related to myself and life. During this time, Anku, a warrior who had just lost an important battle and was drowning in shame and self-hate, came to see me. His eyes burned with anger at what he called his own cowardice. "Master," he said, his voice shaking, "I need your help to become brave. I'm tired of being a coward. I hate that part of me. I want to get rid of it forever." I looked at him kindly, thinking about my own struggles with my darker sides. "Anku," I said, "what's the opposite of cowardice?" "Courage, of course." "And how do you define courage?" "The absence of fear, the ability to act without feeling afraid." I smiled. "I'm going to teach you something that will change how you see courage forever. True courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about feeling fear and still choosing to do what's right. Without fear, there's no courage. They're two sides of the same coin." He looked confused. "So my cowardice isn't my enemy. It's just courage from the other side. The fear you feel when danger is real is the same energy that can push you to act bravely when it counts. They're not different forces, just the same force at opposite ends. I taught him the practice of polar transmutation. Instead of fighting his fear, he would fully observe it. What exactly scared him, whether the danger was real or imagined, what his fear was trying to tell him, and what it was protecting him from. When he truly understood his fear, he could find the courage that lives at the opposite end. Not a different courage, but the same fear transformed into wise action. We practiced for weeks. Anku learned to feel his fear without resisting it, to learn from it, and then to move consciously toward the opposite pole of that same energy. The results were amazing. In the next battle, he didn't fight without fear. He fought with fear but still acted bravely. His courage was more real, wiser, and more effective than just being fearless. My biggest lesson about polarity came later when I worked with Tala, a woman who came to me because she hated her sister deeply. "Master," she said, tears in her eyes, "I've tried to forgive my sister for years. I've practiced every love and compassion technique I know, but I just can't. I hate her, and I hate myself for feeling that way. I want you to help me get this hatred out of my heart." I asked gently, "Who do you love most in your life?" "My children, without a doubt." "How would you describe that love?" "It's burning and fierce. I would do anything to protect them, even kill if I had to." "Now," I said, "how would you describe your hatred for your sister?" "It's burning and fierce too, so strong it consumes me." "Do you notice anything interesting about how you describe them?" She was silent for a moment, thinking. "They're the same intensity." "Exactly. Your love for your children and your hatred for your sister are the same emotional energy, just at opposite ends. The problem isn't that you can hate, it's that you haven't learned how to consciously change that energy to its opposite. I explained that strong hatred only exists when there's an equally strong capacity for love. Opposites are equal in power and nature. Her hatred showed she had a huge ability to love, but that energy had shifted to the negative side because of old wounds. Instead of fighting her hatred, I taught her to fully explore it. What was beneath that hate? What pain, betrayal, hurt love, or broken expectations were there? When she saw her hatred as really wounded love, she could start consciously changing it, not denying the pain, but using it as the raw material to create understanding, compassion, and eventually healed love. The process took months, but it was beautiful to watch. Tala didn't become someone who forgave her sister from a place of moral high ground. She became someone who understood that her capacity to hate and to love was the same energy, and she learned to choose consciously which side to live from. Through years of working with polar transmutation, I realized this law applies to everything in life. Poverty and wealth are opposite ends of the same relationship with resources. If you really understand poverty, you can shift to true wealth. Illness and health are opposite sides of the same energetic balance. Exploring your illness deeply can lead to healing. Ignorance and wisdom are two poles of the same knowledge. True wisdom comes from deeply knowing your own ignorance. But here's a warning. Polar transmutation is not just repressing feelings. Many people hear about this law and use it as an excuse to deny their feelings. "Oh, my anger is just misdirected love," they say, then push their anger down without really exploring it. That's not real transmutation. That's fake spirituality. True polar transmutation means you fully honor the experience you're going through before trying to move toward its opposite. You need to take in all the wisdom, information, and lessons your tough experience has to offer. Only then can you genuinely transform it. I learned this working with Caleb, a merchant who came to me thinking he had mastered polar transmutation, but his life was falling apart despite his spiritual efforts. "Master," he said with a confident tone, I've turned all my anger into love, all my sadness into joy, and all my fear into courage. But somehow, my life is getting more chaotic. When we look deeper, I realized Caleb hadn't really transformed anything. He had just pushed his negative emotions down and fooled himself into thinking he was feeling the positive ones. His hidden anger showed up as passive aggressiveness, his hidden sadness as fake enthusiasm, his hidden fear as reckless behavior. Caleb, I told him, before you can truly transform any energy, you have to fully honor it. You need to let it teach you everything it has to offer. Trying to transform too soon is just repression disguised as spirituality. I taught him what I call the polar honoring protocol. Full recognition. Admit honestly what you're feeling without judging yourself. Say, I'm feeling anger, not I shouldn't feel anger. Deep exploration. Ask what this feeling is trying to tell you, what boundaries are being crossed, what needs aren't met, what values feel threatened. Wisdom extraction. What can you learn from this that you couldn't learn any other way? How does it help you grow? Appropriate action. What should you do outside yourself? Set boundaries, speak up, or change something. Conscious transmutation. Only after fully honoring the feeling should you choose to move toward its opposite, carrying all the wisdom you gained. Once Caleb learned to honor his difficult emotions first, his life changed completely. His honored anger became healthy boundaries. His honored sadness turned into real compassion. His honored fear became wise caution. Genuine transformation replaced fake spirituality. One of my deepest insights about polarity came later when I realized opposites aren't just the same. They depend on each other to exist. There's no light without darkness because light defines itself by contrast. There's no joy without sadness. There's no courage without fear. Opposites don't fight. They dance, they create each other, define each other, and complete each other. This changed how I see life. I stopped seeing it as a battle between forces and started seeing it as a cosmic dance, where each side needs the other to grow. I stopped fighting my dark moments and learned to honor them as necessary, to truly appreciate my bright moments. I stopped fighting confusion and started celebrating it because it makes clarity meaningful. I learned to breathe fully, inhale and exhale, expand and contract, show and withdraw, just like the universe does. That dark night of the soul that led me to understand polarity became one of my greatest gifts. Not because I escaped it, but because I learned to dance consciously between both sides, gaining the unique lessons each offered. And I realized that this endless dance between opposites is the key to understanding the cosmic rhythm that keeps everything in perfect balance. Chapter 5. When I realized the pendulum of destiny had stopped for me. The law of rhythm says everything moves in waves, flowing and ebbing. One golden afternoon by the Nile Delta, where the sacred river meets the vast sea, I was watching the tides when a powerful truth hit me. My life had been swinging back and forth just like those waves. I had been riding a roller coaster of brilliant insights followed by deep darkness, and I kept asking myself why. I'd lived through days of perfect clarity when the universe's secrets seemed open to me like a book, only to be followed by weeks of confusion when even simple lessons slipped away. It felt like the universe itself was breathing through me, inhaling light and exhaling shadow, a cycle I couldn't understand or control. That afternoon, as I watched the waves roll in and out with perfect rhythm, something inside me started to vibrate in tune with that endless movement. I had seen the sea many times before, but this was the first time I truly heard its message. Every wave brought energy in and took energy away, yet the sea never lost or gained anything. It just kept flowing. In that moment, a revelation hit me like a lightning bolt. I had been fighting the rhythm instead of flowing with it. For years, I saw my highs and lows as personal failures, signs that I wasn't spiritually perfect. But there, watching the eternal tides, I understood I was witnessing one of the universe's most basic laws, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows and ebbs, from planets orbiting to our hearts beating, from the seasons to entire civilizations, rising and falling. Day follows night, joy follows sorrow, abundance follows scarcity. All part of an endless dance that keeps balance in the universe. But here's the amazing part. While I was watching the waves and thinking about this truth, something extraordinary happened. For the first time, I felt my own life's pendulum without being pulled along by it. It was like finding the exact spot in the middle of the swing, the calm center where you can watch the back and forth without being tossed around. I thought back to a conversation I had weeks earlier with an old fisherman in Alexandria. He'd spent decades sailing through storms and calm seas, and he told me something I hadn't fully understood before. Master, the secret isn't to avoid storms, but to find calm inside them. The sea will always be the sea, but a wise sailor learns to navigate both rough and smooth waters. Now, standing by the Nile, those words made perfect sense. The fisherman had figured out something I was now seeing clearly. You don't overcome the law of rhythm by fighting it. You rise above it. But how do you do that in real life? The answer came to me like a waterfall of understanding. The key is neutralization. Just like you can stop a pendulum at its center if you push at the right moment, you can stop the ups and downs in your life by finding your spiritual center. After this realization, I started practicing this new way of being. Whenever I felt myself heading toward an emotional or spiritual low, instead of struggling or worrying, I focused on finding my center. I imagined my awareness rising above the swing of my feelings, watching them from a higher place. The first time I managed this was during what should have been a very dark period. News of conflicts from faraway lands had come in. Some of my students had left the teachings for worldly pleasures, and I began doubting the value of sharing wisdom in a world that seemed to prefer ignorance. In the past, these things would have dragged me into weeks of sadness and doubt. But this time I remembered the lesson of the tides. I sat in deep meditation and consciously lifted myself above my emotional swings. I didn't deny what I felt, but stepped back and observed my feelings as part of life's natural flow, not as who I really was. The result was incredible. For the first time, I experienced what I call the spiritual eye of the hurricane, that perfect calm at the center of all movement. From that higher view, I saw that my doubts were just as important as my clarity. Both were needed to keep my spiritual growth balanced. But knowing this also brought great responsibility. Once you learn to neutralize the rhythm's pendulum, you become the master of your own experience in ways most people can't imagine. You can't blame outside events for how you feel, because you found the power to rise above any swing. In the months that followed, I taught this technique to my most advanced students. I helped them see the patterns in their lives, cycles of energy highs and lows, times of mental clarity and confusion, seasons of plenty and lack. Once they could spot these cycles, I taught them how to consciously rise above them. Imagine, I said, your awareness is like a bird that can fly at different heights. When you're stuck in the pendulum of your feelings, it's like the bird is skimming the ground, getting knocked around by everything. But when you rise up consciously, it's like the bird soars high, seeing the whole landscape calmly. The obstacles stay below, but they no longer control you. One of my students, a young merchant named Amenhotep, used this teaching during a financial crisis that threatened to ruin his family. Instead of giving in to the panic and despair that usually come with such times, he practiced neutralization. He consciously rose above the swings of his situation and, from that higher view, saw opportunities he hadn't noticed before. Not only did he save his business, but he came out of the crisis even more successful than before. But I need to warn you, this ability to rise above life's ups and downs shouldn't be used to avoid the lessons life wants to teach us. Sometimes we need to fully feel both the highs and the lows, because it's through those contrasts that we grow in wisdom and compassion. The true master of rhythm isn't someone who tries to avoid all the swings, but someone who can choose when to be part of the back and forth and when to rise above it. It's like a skilled musician who knows their instrument so well they can play both the high and low notes perfectly, creating a beautiful symphony that feeds the soul. I remember a deep conversation with a priestess of Isis on this topic. She told me, "Hermes, the river flowing to the sea doesn't fight the rocks in its way. It embraces them, shapes them, and lets them shape it too. That's how we should relate to life's rhythm, not as victims of the cosmic flow, but as conscious participants in life's eternal dance." Her words helped me see even more clearly. The principle of rhythm isn't just a rule for our personal lives. It's the force that keeps the whole universe in balance. Without rhythm, there would be no renewal, no growth, no life. It's the cosmic engine that makes sure nothing ever stays still, that everything keeps evolving. This changed how I viewed tough times. I realized those hard periods aren't punishments or signs of failure. They're essential parts of the universal rhythm that push us to grow spiritually and reach new heights. I developed a practice I called the 40 days of the sacred pendulum. For 40 days straight, I carefully watched my own internal rhythms without judging or trying to change them. I simply noticed when my energy was high or low, when I felt connected or disconnected spiritually, when I was creative or receptive. By the end of those 40 days, I had mapped my own personal pendulum. I understood my natural cycles so well that I could predict them and, more importantly, work with them instead of fighting them. During my low energy times, I focused on reflection and study. During high energy periods, I dedicated myself to teaching and creating. But the real power came when I learned to communicate consciously with the pendulum itself. I found I could send clear intentions to the universal rhythm, not to stop it, which would be impossible and harmful, but to move more smoothly with it. It felt like learning to dance with an invisible cosmic partner. Once you know the rhythm and the steps, you're not tossed around by the dance anymore. You become part of it, adding your own style and grace to the universal flow. This understanding brought me one of the deepest insights of my life. We don't just follow the principle of rhythm, we are its expression. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought is a note in the cosmic symphony of rhythm. Now, when I see people struggling against life's natural ups and downs, I recognize my own past ignorance in them. They try to hold on to the good times forever and avoid the bad times at all costs, not realizing they're fighting one of the universe's most basic forces. The real secret I learned by the delta's tides, that golden afternoon, is this: the pendulum of destiny never really stops, but we can learn to dance with it so smoothly that it feels like it's paused just for us. It's the difference between being tossed by the waves and surfing them with skill and grace. That moment by the sea didn't just change how I thought, it changed how I lived day to day. I no longer feared times of reflection or struggle, because I knew they were just as sacred and necessary as moments of joy and insight. I found peace in movement, stillness in change, and eternity in the flow of time. As the sun set over the waters that unforgettable afternoon, I understood that I had received one of the universe's greatest gifts, the wisdom to flow with life instead of fighting it, and the grace to find the still center within constant motion. This understanding of universal rhythm prepared me to grasp something even deeper. Nothing in the universe exists alone. Everything is connected by an invisible chain of cause and effect that weaves the very fabric of existence. Chapter 6. The moment I realized why everything comes back to me. The law of cause and effect says every cause has its effect. It felt like waking up from a long dream when I finally understood that chance doesn't really exist in the universe. It was a quiet dawn in my secret sanctuary inside the great temple of Thoth in Hermopolis. I had spent the whole night thinking about a question that had been bothering me for months. Why did certain patterns keep repeating in my life and in the lives of those around me? For years, I had noticed something both amazing and unsettling. The people who came to me as students never seemed to be there by accident. Each one brought exactly the questions I needed to answer for my own growth. The very challenges that pushed me to understand more deeply. It was like the universe was arranging these meetings with a precision that didn't make sense at first. But that morning, as the first light came through the small stone windows of my sacred space, the truth hit me with breathtaking clarity. It wasn't that the universe was creating magical coincidences, but that I, through my past thoughts, feelings, actions, and choices, had started a chain of causes that were now coming back to me as effects. In that moment, I understood that my whole life had unfolded inside an invisible but perfectly ordered network of cause and effect. Every thought I'd thought, every word I'd spoken, every action I'd taken was like throwing a stone into a cosmic pond, creating waves that would eventually return to shore in my own experience. I remembered a conversation with my master years ago, an old priest whose name is lost to time, but whose wisdom is still with me. He said, "Young Hermes, the universe is like an endless mirror. Everything you send out returns to you, often changed by its journey through time and space." Back then, I thought I understood, but now I realized I had barely begun to grasp that deep truth. The law of cause and effect isn't just about cosmic justice. It's how the universe keeps order and lets conscious beings take part in creating their reality. As I thought about this, I traced back the chains of causes that shaped my life today. I saw clearly how my choice to seek spiritual knowledge as a youth led me to find my master, how my dedication brought experiences that helped me understand Hermetic laws, and how my wish to share wisdom attracted the students who now taught me in return. The most amazing part was seeing how this law works on every level at once. Physically, every movement I made affected space and time. Emotionally, every feeling I had sent out vibrations that came back through others' emotions. Mentally, every thought I held planted seeds that later grew into real-life situations. I remember clearly the case of Katie, a young scribe who came to me years ago, wanting to learn about manifestation. He was frustrated because, as he said, he had tried everything to fix his money problems, but nothing worked. During our talks, I noticed Katie constantly complained about being poor, criticized wealthy merchants, and held resentment toward people who had more than he did. I explained something I now understand perfectly. He was planting seeds of scarcity and bitterness in his mind, and then wondered why his life kept showing him exactly that. It wasn't punishment, it was the cosmic law working exactly as it should, returning to him the effects of the causes he was setting. We worked together for months, so Katie could really understand and use the law of cause and effect. I taught him to watch his usual thoughts, recognize his emotional habits, and most importantly, take full responsibility for the causes he put into motion each day. The change was amazing. Once Katie started planting thoughts of abundance, gratitude, and kindness, his life began to shift in ways he never expected. This wasn't magic, it was simply applying a universal law as reliably as gravity. But this taught me an important lesson about the power and responsibility that come with understanding the law of cause and effect. Once you know you shape your own experience, you can't pretend to be an innocent victim anymore. Every situation you face is a chance to look at what causes you set in motion to bring it about. After this awakening, I developed a practice I called causal tracing. Every day, I'd pick one important thing in my life and trace backward through the chain of causes that created it. At first, I only saw the closest causes, but with practice, I learned to trace these chains years or even decades into the past. This practice showed me something that changed how I see life. Most people live like sleepwalkers when it comes to cause and effect. They keep creating results without realizing what they're planting for their future. It's like they walk through a field full of invisible seeds, unknowingly planting the harvest they'll face months or years down the line. One of my biggest realizations came when I saw that the law of cause and effect works not just through time, but across different levels of reality. A thought started in the mind can show up later as something physical. Feelings can create thoughts, and spiritual causes can affect everything below them. This helped me understand that mastering this law means being aware of all parts of ourselves, not just what we do with our bodies, but what we think, feel, and believe spiritually. All of these plant seeds in the cosmic garden of cause and effect. I remember one clear example. I spent weeks trying to resolve a conflict between two groups of priests in our temple. I tried every diplomatic trick I knew, but the fighting kept getting worse, and I felt frustrated I couldn't bring peace. One night during deep meditation, I decided to change my approach. Instead of trying to change what the priests were doing, I focused on what I was creating inside myself. For days, I sent out thoughts of harmony, peace, and understanding, without trying to force any specific outcome. The results surprised me. In less than a week, those same priests who had been at war started finding common ground. Conversations that used to end in arguments turned into peaceful discussions. It felt like by changing the quality of the energy I was putting out, I changed the whole atmosphere. This taught me that the true power of the law of cause and effect isn't in trying to control what happens outside, but in mastering what we put into motion inside ourselves. It's the difference between trying to steer the river and being the source of the river. But I have to warn you, knowing this law can lead to two dangerous extremes. On one side, people might think they have total control over the universe, as if it's their personal toy to manipulate. On the other, some may feel crushed by the weight of responsibility, blaming themselves for every bad thing that happens. The truth is, we're all co-creators in a cosmic system much bigger than we can ever fully understand. We have real power to influence our lives through the causes we create, but we also take part in huge networks of causes involving countless others. The wise person takes full responsibility for what they can control, but stays humble and accepts those parts of life shaped by causes beyond their reach. It's like captaining a ship. You decide where to sail, but you can't control the winds and currents. One of my advanced students, a priestess named Nefertari, once asked me, "Master, if everything is cause and effect, where does free will fit in?" I told her, "Nefertari, free will is exactly our ability to become aware of the causes we create every moment. We choose which seeds to plant in the garden of reality. The results we get come from past choices, but right now, we have total power to decide what we plant for the future." This changed how I deal with hard situations. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" I learned to ask, "What cause did I set in motion to create this?" And what new cause can I start now to create what I want next? I created a daily practice called the Art of Conscious Sowing. Every morning before starting my day, I'd choose intentionally what kinds of causes I wanted to set in motion. It wasn't just making a to-do list, but deciding the energy, emotions, and thoughts I wanted to contribute to the universe. If I wanted more harmony, I made sure to bring harmony into every interaction. If I wanted more wisdom, I focused on learning and sharing wisdom. If I wanted abundance, I practiced generosity and support for others. The results were so consistent, I stopped believing in luck or chance. The universe showed itself as a perfectly ordered system, where every cause without fail produces its effect, even if the timing or way it happens is beyond our understanding. This gave me what I think is the most useful secret for living an extraordinary life. In every moment, we are both the result of all our past causes and the starting point for all our future experiences. We are both the effect of yesterday and the cause of tomorrow. But maybe the most freeing part of mastering the law of cause and effect is realizing it's never too late to start planting better causes. No matter what results you're facing now from past choices, right now you have the full power to create a different future by the new causes you decide to set in motion. I've seen people completely change their lives just by improving the quality of the causes they create every day. It doesn't always happen fast. Often we have to deal with the results of past mistakes first. But if you keep at it with patience and wisdom, it's absolutely certain to work. As I write this, I feel the invisible but powerful connection from this moment to countless possible futures. Every word I choose, every intention I hold while sharing these ideas becomes a cause that will one day show up as effects in your life and in the lives of everyone who hears these teachings. This is maybe the most sacred responsibility that comes with understanding the law of cause and effect. Realizing that we're conscious links in an endless cosmic chain, and we have the power and the duty to make sure our link helps raise and evolve universal awareness. That morning in my secret sanctuary, when I woke up from the dream of chance and accepted the reality of universal cause and effect, it didn't just change how I thought, it changed how I lived. It made me a conscious participant in the great unfolding of cosmic destiny. Now, as I think about the mysteries still ahead, I feel this understanding prepares me for the deepest truth of all, that inside every conscious being is a sacred duality which, once understood and balanced, becomes the very source of all conscious creation. Chapter 7. The morning I embraced both my light and shadow. The law of gender says everything has masculine and feminine energies. One morning, looking into the sacred water's reflection, I felt a mix of fear and inspiration. It was a new moon dawn in Isis's secret sanctuary, where the pool reflects not just faces but the deepest truths inside us. I had come there after months of a spiritual crisis that nearly broke everything I thought I knew about myself. For weeks, my experience felt like a mystery I couldn't control. In the mornings, I was full of fire and creativity. Ideas and insights flowed through me like rivers of divine light. I could teach for hours without getting tired, write sacred texts with a skill that seemed to come from the gods, and solve my students' toughest problems with ease. But each afternoon, everything shifted. I became deeply sensitive, feeling the emotions of every living thing around me. I grew quiet, intuitive, able to understand truths not with my mind, but from deep inside. At first, I thought this back and forth was a problem, maybe too much spiritual practice or something wrong with my mind. I tried to hold on to the energetic, creative mornings all day, but the effort only made the shifts stronger and left me exhausted. That morning, desperate for answers, I came to Isis's pool. I knelt under the temple's torchlight and stared at my reflection, asking the Great Mother to reveal the truth behind my confusion. What I saw took my breath away. I didn't see one face, but two versions of myself layered like two shining images. One was bright, full of energy, pushing forward, creative, active, and focused. The other was calm, quiet, open, nurturing, and deeply wise. In that moment, I understood I wasn't broken or sick. I was seeing the clear sign of the last and most basic Hermetic law, the principle of gender. Inside me, just like in the whole universe, two important forces work together, each perfect on its own and necessary to make the whole complete. This isn't about physical gender or human sexuality as we usually think about it. It's deeper than that. It's the understanding that everything, from atoms to galaxies, from thoughts to civilizations, comes from the dance between two cosmic forces. One is active and pushes forward. The other is receptive and shapes what it receives. My master once told me about this sacred balance, but back then it was just an idea. He said, "Hermes, the secret to creating consciously is to bring your masculine and feminine sides into harmony. When they dance perfectly together, you become a clear channel for the universe's will." Now, looking at my double reflection, those words came alive. I realized I had spent my whole life favoring the active side, thinking it was stronger and more spiritual, while pushing away or feeling ashamed of the quiet, receptive side. But in that moment, I saw the perfect beauty and importance of both. The masculine side was the flame that sparked creativity, the strength that moved me to act, the sharp clarity that cut through confusion. The feminine side was the cup that held divine inspiration, the wisdom that helped ideas grow, the deep intuition that understood beyond logic. Sitting by the pool that morning, I felt what I can only call my soul's wedding. For the first time, I let both sides of myself come through freely, without judgment, without trying to favor one over the other. The result was an explosion of creative power I'd never known. Ideas that had been scattered for months came together perfectly. Problems that seemed impossible found elegant solutions. A deep peace settled over me. Not a passive peace, but a lively, balanced peace where opposing forces worked perfectly together. After that, I began practicing this balance consciously. When teaching, I let the masculine side lead, sharing knowledge with clear authority. But right after, I opened fully to the feminine side, welcoming my students' questions and doubts with kindness and deep understanding. The results were amazing. My students made breakthroughs that would normally take years. It was like the harmony inside me created a space where they could more easily bring their own inner balance. I especially remember a young priestess named Anka Senamun. She was very smart but struggled with a constant inner battle between her logical mind and her deep intuition. After years of trying to shut down one side, she came to me feeling broken and unable to access her true spiritual power. When I explained the principle of gender to Anka as I had come to understand it by the sacred pool, I saw something change right away in her eyes. "Master," she said, "I've been trying to be only half of who I really am." Over the next few weeks, we worked together so she could learn how to balance these inner forces. I taught her that true power doesn't come from one side dominating the other, but from them working perfectly together. When she faced a tough problem, she first connected with her receptive side, letting her intuition reveal the heart of the issue. Then she switched to her active side, using her logical mind to create practical solutions based on what her intuition showed her. The change was so clear that other students started asking what had happened. Anka now radiated both strength and grace, clarity and compassion. It was like she had found the perfect harmony within herself. But this experience also taught me something important about using the law of gender in real life. It's not enough to just know that both sides exist inside us. We have to learn how to call on and coordinate them depending on what the moment calls for. That's why I developed a practice I call the Dance of the Sacred Principles. In it, I consciously shift between times of active doing and times of quiet receiving, while always staying aware of both sides inside me. Even in my busiest moments, I keep a part of my attention open to intuition, letting it guide my choices. And when I'm deeply quiet and receptive, I keep my ability to think clearly and act consciously active. This practice showed me that mastering the principle of gender isn't just about balance. It's about full integration. It's not being 50% masculine and 50% feminine, but being 100% of both at once, with each side expressing itself when needed. Both are always there, ready to support us. One of the biggest realizations came when I saw this law isn't just about individuals. It's at work in every relationship and creation. In every important human connection, there's a dance between masculine and feminine energies. At the most creative moments, one person naturally takes the active role, while the other becomes open and receptive. And then they can switch roles smoothly as the situation changes. I saw this clearly in my work with advanced students. Sometimes I took the active role, sharing teachings while they listened and absorbed. Other times they brought fresh insights, and I stepped back to listen and learn from them. The most successful partnerships I've known developed this dance naturally, not stuck in fixed roles based on gender, but flowing freely with each person expressing both their active and receptive sides as needed. But I have to warn you, the principle of gender can be misunderstood if mixed up with social ideas about gender or used to justify inequality. The Hermetic truth is the opposite. Every conscious being, no matter their body, contains both masculine and feminine principles fully, and has the right and responsibility to develop both. In my years teaching this law, I've seen people freed from old limits based on wrong ideas about masculinity and femininity. Men who embrace their feminine side don't become less masculine. They become more whole, creative, and wise. Women who develop their masculine side don't lose their femininity. They gain personal power and clear direction that changes their lives. I remember a powerful conversation with a wise oracle from Delphi who visited our temple. She told me, "Hermes, the secret of conscious creation is simple but deep. The masculine side plants the seed of intention. The feminine side is the womb where that seed grows into reality. When these two come together perfectly inside a person, that person becomes like a minor god, able to create realities that show divine will." Her words helped me understand why this law is the crown of all Hermetic teachings. The other 6 laws explain how the universe works, but the law of gender shows us how to take part consciously in creating reality. Every creation, from the smallest thought to the greatest work, needs these two inner forces working together. The masculine side dreams the vision, sets the goal, and pushes forward. The feminine side receives the vision, nurtures it, and brings it fully into being. Without both, there's no real creation, just empty activity or ideas that never come to life. This led me to develop what I believe is my most practical contribution to the Hermetic arts, the conscious creation process. It's a step-by-step method to bring any reality you want into being by consciously balancing your inner masculine and feminine energies. The process starts with what I call sacred conception. In deep meditation, I let my masculine side create a clear, specific intention. This isn't just a wish, it's a firm decision, full of focused willpower. Right after, without pause, I opened fully to my feminine side. In this completely open state, I let the intention sink deep inside me, where it can be nourished by intuition and shaped by a wisdom beyond reason. For days or weeks, I nurture this intention, moving back and forth between focused action, masculine, and quiet reflection, feminine. Slowly, the original idea grows richer and fuller, guided by clear purpose and deep insight. Finally comes the moment of birth, when this fully formed inner reality is ready to appear in the outside world. This needs the perfect teamwork of both sides, the masculine energy to take action and the feminine energy to notice and grab the chances the universe offers. I've used this process to create many things, from healing diseases others said couldn't be healed, to building schools, settling community disputes, and gaining higher spiritual knowledge. It works so well, I consider it the highest practical use of all the Hermetic laws combined. But maybe the biggest change for mastering the law of gender is the peace it brings to everyday life. When you stop fighting the different parts of yourself and instead conduct them like a symphony, life becomes a beautiful expression of divine balance. That morning by Isis's sacred pool didn't just change what I thought. It brought me back to myself, whole for the first time. Seeing both parts of me reflected in the water was like discovering I'd been living with only half my power. Now, when I meet other seekers struggling with inner conflict, I can offer them more than just ideas or exercises. I can show them, through my own being, the living proof that full integration is possible, that you can be powerful and gentle, clear and kind, active and thoughtful all at once. And as I finish sharing these stories I never planned to tell, I realize writing this has been the perfect example of the law of gender in action. My masculine side gave me the focus and structure to organize these teachings, while my feminine side brought up the memories and shaped them into words that I hope touch your heart as well as your mind. This is my final invitation to you. Don't settle for being only half of who you really are. Both sides of divine creativity live inside you, waiting for the courage to fully embrace them. Here I stand, at the end of these confessions I never thought I'd share. My hands, ancient as the hieroglyphs they traced, shaking a little not from weakness but from the weight of what I've given you. Every law I've revealed came from deep pain, change, and enlightenment. These weren't just ideas from old scrolls. They were truths that broke my soul and rebuilt it into something greater, freer, more aware. And here's the most amazing thing. Right now, you are going through the same awakening I did thousands of years ago. The same transformation, because time moves in circles and every soul that wakes up walks this sacred path again. When you realize that everything is mind, you're not just learning, you're remembering. When you see the connection between the big and the small, it's not new. It's your own divine self whispering to you. I've watched empires rise and fall, stars being born and minds opening, but nothing has touched me more deeply than knowing these words have reached you. You are no accident. Every vibration, every polarity, every rhythm in your life has brought you to this very moment. You are the conscious cause of your own awakening. The knowledge you have now isn't just information, it's power. Power to change your world, rise above your challenges, and design your own destiny. But remember my warning, with great power comes great cosmic responsibility. Use this knowledge wisely, share it with respect, and apply it with love. For every thought, every vibration, every cause you set will come back to you multiplied many times over. Now, I share one last personal truth. For all these thousands of years, I've waited for this moment, the moment when I'd find someone ready not only for the Hermetic laws, but for the personal experiences behind them. That someone is you. The circle is complete. The student becomes the master. Ancient wisdom finds a new home in a prepared heart. Go forward now, brother or sister of the soul, walking the world knowing that inside you lie the same secrets that built the pyramids, inspired the great masters, and turned darkness into light. The legacy is yours, the power is yours, eternity is yours. As above, so below, as within, so without, as in thought, so in reality. With endless love and deep respect, Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great.